Nike is the goddess of victory in Greek mythology. She is the daughter of the Titan Pallas and the nymph Styx, having as brother Kratos, the strength, Zulus, which represented rivalry and greatness, and Bia, the force. With her brothers, the goddess of victory fought alongside the Olympian gods during the Titanomachy, the war fought between the gods and the Titans, and also provided assistance to Zeus during his fight against Typhon. Already in the Gigantomachy, the goddess drove Zeus's chariot during the clash against the giants. The goddess is depicted as a winged figure, wielding a sword and holding a laurel crown, and making use of the latter, the goddess elected the winners. Nike personified victory in battles, the success in athletic games, and also in equestrian competitions. The goddess Athena is often depicted with a small statue of the goddess of victory in her left hand, and most successes of Athena would be justified by the fact that the goddess Nike was always by her side. In Roman mythology, the goddess Nike is known by the name of Victoria. She was worshipped by soldiers of the Roman legions, who begged for her in battlefields. Her popularity was so vast that a statue of the goddess of victory had a prominent spot in the Roman Senate. When Rome adopted Christianity, the goddess of victory started to be worshipped as an angelic figure. In turn, the athletes of antiquity made sacrifices in honor of the goddess, so that Nike could grant them victory and glory. In the modern Olympic Games, the goddess's image is found on the back of the medals. The goddess of victory served as inspiration for the name of one of the most famous manufacturers of sporting goods. Today, statues of the goddess ornament several squares and monuments all over the world. But certainly, Nike's most famous statue is the winged victory of Samothrace. It is estimated that the statue was carved in the 2nd century BC, and today is part of the Louvre Museum in Paris. Albeit worn down by time, one can still feel the magnificence of the image of the goddess of victory.
And Phil Knight had just graduated from Stanford. As any business graduate can tell you, becoming an entrepreneur is difficult if you don't have any good ideas. But Phil had one. He was a distance runner back in university, and in one of his business classes, he had written a paper proposing the following idea. Phil had seen how Japanese cameras had replaced the dominant German cameras in the American market, and he wondered whether Japanese shoes could do the same to Puma and Adidas, which were at the time extremely popular in America. And by the way, that is indeed how you pronounce Adidas. But back to Phil. After writing that paper and graduating, Phil became obsessed with his idea about bringing Japanese shoes to the USA. Of course, he didn't actually own any Japanese running shoes, and the few he had seen were brought stateside by soldiers who had been stationed in Japan during the occupation after the Second World War. But this lack of exposure only reassured Phil that he had stumbled upon a great opportunity. He knew that to take advantage of it, he'd have to establish contact with a Japanese company and negotiate to import their goods to America, both of which were actions he had exactly zero experience with. But, as is befitting of the man who later created Nike, he went ahead and just did it. In November 1962, he flew over to Japan like a tourist and just started exploring. In the beautiful city of Kobe, he stumbled upon a shoe store that caught his eye. It belonged to a company called Onitsuka Tiger, and the shoes they made were, for their time, very high quality. So much so that Phil was determined to import them back home. He presented himself as an American shoe distributor and arranged a meeting with the company's founder. Phil made up a company name on the spot and offered to become Onitsuka's distributor in America, a proposal which, probably to his surprise, the owner actually accepted. With nothing more than his confidence, Phil had become the exclusive distributor for Onitsuka Tiger in the USA. He received his first shipment of 12 pairs of Tiger shoes in 1963, and he started selling them out of the back of his car at every running track he could drive to. Obviously, though, his strategy wasn't scalable, so he went to the only person he knew who understood more about running shoes than he did, his former coach at the University of Oregon, Bill Bowerman. Now, Bill was easily one of the most famous coaches in America at the time. He had, in fact, trained multiple Olympic athletes. He liked the Tiger shoes so much that he wanted to partner up. Thus, in January 1964, Bill and Phil incorporated Blue Ribbon Sports, each investing $500 into it. They spent all that money on their first order, which, at $3.33 a pair, amounted to 300 pairs of shoes. The shipment came through in April 1964, and thanks to Bill's connections, it was sold out by July. In their first year, BRS sold $8,000 worth of shoes, and with that money, Phil started hiring salesmen for his company. In 1965, their revenue had increased to $20,000, and pretty soon, they opened their very own store in Santa Monica. But while Phil was handling the business side of the operation, the actual innovation was coming from Bill. He was the guy who single-handedly brought jogging to America. In 1966, he wrote a book about it that sold over 1 million copies. And of course, his company was among the first to start marketing the Tiger shoes for jogging. Bowerman was all about innovation, and with every new shipment from Onitsuka, he'd cut open a few shoes to see how they were made, and he'd always try to improve them, by, for example, adding to the cushion or using more lightweight materials. He'd constantly send his notes to Japan requesting changes. He was effectively designing Onitsuka's shoes for them. It was one of Bill's designs that catapulted BRS into the mainstream. The Cortez, as he called it, became one of the best-selling shoes in 1968, undoubtedly thanks to the 1968 Olympics, held in Mexico. Thanks to the Cortez, BRS sold $300,000 worth of shoes in 1969. But they had a big problem. The Cortez was so successful that they couldn't keep up with the demand. Every new shipment they received sold out faster than the one before, but Onitsuka kept sending them at the same glacial pace. What Onitsuka were actually doing was satisfying their local demand in Japan first, and then sending whatever was left to America. Phil and Bill knew that to expand, they would have to evolve beyond being just a simple distributor. Then they realized that they held all the cards. The Cortez was Bowerman's design, so as soon as their contract with Onitsuka expired, they were free to start making it for themselves. Luckily for them, their contract would end in 1972, just before the Olympics in Munich. Thus, Phil had plenty of time to prepare for his big move. In 1971, he started working on the branding. His first employee suggested calling the brand Nike, after the Greek goddess of victory. Then, Phil needed a logo, so he went to a nearby university, snatched the first graphic design student he could find, and told her to make him a logo. For the impressive sum of $35, he got this, the swoosh. In hindsight, that was money well spent, and with his branding now complete, Phil was ready for the Olympics. This time, instead of locking himself into exclusive agreements, Phil established a network of subcontractors across Japan. With production under his control, Phil could finally spread his wings. You can see in this graph of Nike's sales exactly when Phil started importing shoes from his Japanese subcontractors. And yes, he started before his contract had even expired, in 1971. From then on, the story of Nike became one of growth. They became the largest sportswear company in America in 1989, on the back of brilliant marketing like the Just Do It campaign, and by signing rookie athletes that would eventually become famous across the world. The ascent of Nike is a story every bit as interesting as the early days of Phil Knight. But don't take my word for it. Phil Knight himself released his autobiography in 2016, and you can listen to it for free
at like the age of 18, I was just on the track. Go to a good college, get a decent degree, do good. You're going to get an entry-level job down on Wall Street. You're going to work real hard. You're going to get broke. You're going to make tons of money. You're going to be retired by a very young age. You're going to have a house on the beach in New Jersey and a couple Mercedes and a trophy wife, and that'll be the end of the game. I'm done. Multi-millionaire. That's it. I was playing professionally for the New Jersey Imperials. I was playing the best soccer of my life. I get offered this coaching job by one of my teammates to go coach at St. John's University, the NCAA Division I national champions. They're the best team in the country. I was having a blast. I was loving coaching. I was loving playing. I'm living in New York. I'm also studying stuff that I really enjoy. I'm digging into studying theology for the first time in my life in a formal way. I get online. I start doing searches about Nike and sweatshops and labor practices. And what I found was, if you wanted to pick a company that completely violates everything that Catholic social teaching is about, Nike would be your perfect case study. And at the same time I'm doing this research, St. John's University Athletic Department starts to negotiate a $3.5 million endorsement deal with Nike that would require me as a coach to wear and promote the products. St. John's University got the largest Catholic institution in the country, coupling itself with the largest sportswear company in the world. And I said, how can we, as such a public symbol of Catholicism, do something that runs completely counter to our mission? We're saying to the world then, look, you should care about the poor, and we should fight against injustice, and we should seek out the causes of poverty. Well, unless you're getting some really good athletic equipment and $3.5 million along with down in Tangerang, Indonesia, this industrial suburb outside of the capital of Jakarta, with the plans that for the next month we were going to live as Nike's factory workers lived, which meant that we were going to go live in a workers' slum outside of the capital, and we were going to live on the workers' wages, $1.25 a day for the next month, to try and come maybe to a better understanding of what it's like for Nike factory workers to make this kind of money and live under these conditions. We lived in a 9x9 cement box. It was over 100 degrees, it's 100% humidity, a small window, certainly no air conditioning.
No furniture. You slept on a very thin mat on an uneven cement floor covered in shelf paper.
The streets outside of your home are lined by open sewers, and what that means, like in the rainy season, you would have all that feces just float up into the streets and into your house.
And every time that you go to the bathroom, it comes back out into the sewer for everybody else to see and smell.
You would have football-sized rats that would stampede over the ceiling at night and come up through the toilet and look for stuff to eat in the house, or the fist-sized cockroaches that would crawl over you at night.
Siapa nama Anda?
Saya.
Daya. Nama Jim.
Nama Jim ya.
Yeah.
Just like anyone around the world, you can't just drop into someone's life and be like, "Hi, we're here. We want to live in your life and tell us how much it sucks." You had to build bonds of trust.
Jim. Siri. Yenny. Nice to meet you.
They treated us very politely, and it wasn't until they saw that we were committed in the capacity of living on the wages that they're forced to live on, in the conditions that they are living in, that they felt that they could start to begin to trust us. You get to know them, and you hold their children, and you eat with them, and you share stories with them. They become part of your family.
We would go to different workers' homes. You got like 4 women sleeping in an 8x8 cement box, and all their possessions are in there, like everything, in this small area.
The workers would have to share a bathroom with 5 to 10 other families. The workers would have to share living quarters, actually like a row of shacks with corrugated tin roofs. All of those families would share a laundry corner and a kitchen facility, and they would all share the same well to take the water out of.
$1.25 a day after you've paid for your rent, water, electricity, any major transportation costs, you're going to be left on average with roughly 7,000 rupiah per day. What the hell does that mean? That's going to buy you 2 simple meals of rice and vegetables, a bag of peanuts, a bottle of iced tea, and some dish detergent. And that's all you can get. And that's your reward?
Without a doubt. We found it out in the first week that we were there. There's no way that you can live on $1.25 a day and maintain your human dignity. It's just not possible.
I lost 25 pounds living on Nike's wages in Indonesia. I spent the month painfully hungry and tired and near the point of exhaustion most days.
I just felt my energy storage was just depleted, and I just started going downhill fast, and I just started getting sick every day.
And she got very sick one day. She had a fever of 104, and she's got to deal with, I have a fever of 104. I can buy aspirin and a little drink box to get some vitamin C, but if I buy those 2 things, I don't eat for the rest of the day.
I don't know what this is gonna do. Because we're gonna go home, we're gonna say, this is not enough money, and no one's gonna do a damn thing different.
How do you feel like a human being? How do you feel like your work, your gifts? For them, the workers that I've talked to the last couple of days, a number of them said the only thing we have is our physical labor. Because I just bought this smallest thing of shaving cream and one razor that I might be able to use 2 or 3 times that I have to cut out 3 meals this week.
Feet are the foundation of our body. From birth, they support us. They enable us to move, to work, and to play. But when something goes wrong with them, it can greatly affect our daily lives. For over 20 million Americans, this problem is neuropathy. Neuropathy is a term used to describe damaged nerves, and it's most commonly found in the feet. Think of neuropathy like a short circuit in an electrical system. Just as a short circuit can cause a power outage in a building, neuropathy can cause disruptions in the signals that the nerves send to the brain. These disruptions can be very painful. Some describe these feelings as pins and needles in the feet, stepping on hot coals, or even shards of glass. Even worse, people with neuropathy lose sensation in their feet, which can affect balance, walking, and treating injuries. But what if in Americans, this problem is neuropathy?
To protect our feet. But what if they're doing more harm than good? I'm Dr. Aaron Horschig, and today in this video we're going to examine what would actually happen if you ditched your shoes and went barefoot for an entire month. Now the first thing you would likely notice is that your toes would begin to spread out. And this is actually a good thing and the sign of a healthy foot. You may not realize, but when you were a baby, your toes were the widest part of your entire foot complex. If you never put a pair of normal shoes on, like most of us wear today, your foot would look the exact same as an adult. And we see examples of this all over the world in populations that don't wear shoes. Unfortunately, at a very young age when we start wearing shoes, something bad starts to happen. Most shoes that are manufactured today are made with a very narrow toe box that cram and pinch your toes together in order to meet fashion standards that date back centuries. Now, if you don't believe me, go find any pair of shoes in your house and try this test. Take the insole out of any pair of shoes you can find and step on it. For many, in order for your foot, specifically your toes, to fit within the liner, the toes will have to be crammed together. Over time, many of our feet start adapting to this cramped position, which is the main reason why people develop foot deformities like bunions. Now, while reversing this adaptation that occurs to bad shoes is going to take a lot of time, months and even years, going barefoot for as little as 1 month and ditching these normal shoes is a good kickstart to starting to see some of these changes. And if you do have to put shoes on, wear shoes that don't cram your toes together like many barefoot style shoes. The second thing you may notice after seeing your toes start to spread out a little bit more is that many people will start to notice less foot pain, specifically those dealing with plantar fasciitis. You see, when your big toe is pulled inward within a narrow shoe, a muscle on the inside bottom part of your foot called your abductor hallucis is put on a stretch. This tightening of the muscle leads to a pinching of a nearby artery that runs underneath called the lateral plantar artery, which then restricts blood flow to a very specific part of the bottom of your foot in most people. Now, poor blood flow limits the body's ability to recover from any type of stress. And if we look specifically at the foot, the plantar fascia is placed under stress anytime you're weight bearing, walking, running, or even jumping. In fact, we find in research that those who are barefoot more often actually have healthier feet with less risk of injuries, specifically plantar fasciitis. This is because for some people, the limited blood flow to the tissues on the inside part of the heel begins to degrade and symptoms of plantar fasciitis begin to set in. So, despite what you may have heard, plantar fasciitis isn't due to inflammation, but rather poor blood flow to that part of the foot that starts a degrading process because your body is unable to adapt. So, with a lot of my patients, one of the first things we do is talk about the type of footwear that they're in. And getting them out of restricted footwear that smash and cram the toes together is the first step to restoring blood flow to the bottom of the foot and starting the fixing process for alleviating pain for plantar fasciitis. Now, as you start walking throughout your day without shoes on more and more, you're going to start to notice that your foot is actually, the reason for this is allowing your toes to actually spread out and lay flat on the ground. You see, your foot was designed to have your toes completely flat on the ground when weight bearing. Because 18 of the foot's 19 tendons are attached to the toes, allowing them to remain firmly flat essentially anchors your entire foot to the ground and enhances foot function and stability. Unfortunately, many shoe manufacturers, specifically those who make athletic shoes, have an unnatural uplift to the front side of the shoe called toe spring. This up tilt to the front of the shoe hinders the foot from functioning optimally within the shoe because the toes cannot lay flat. Over time, this limited stimulation to the smaller muscles within the foot that control the toes can lead to weakness and atrophy. So just getting out of your shoes and walking around barefoot is an excellent way to kickstart strengthening your foot. You don't need any specific foot exercises. Just go barefoot more often. Now, the fourth thing that you're going to start realizing after you ditch your shoes for a while, control of your arch without a fancy orthotic. Now, while there are a very small percentage of people who do have a foot anatomy that requires an orthotic, the height of your arch, or lack thereof, is not a determining factor in foot health for a large majority of people. It's all about how the arch functions, not its appearance. Having low arches doesn't automatically lead to foot problems. However, having low arches in weak feet can. So a lot of people that think that they have flat feet often just have low arches that are very mobile and flexible, and they would benefit from things that strengthen their foot. For example, a while back I was working with professional strongman Travis Ortmeyer. You can see here he has a fairly flat foot, but if I spread his toes out, notice how he actually has a small arch in his foot. So the position of your big toe has a direct connection with maintaining the arch size and function of your foot. Now, as you get better control and stability of your foot and a stronger foot, you'll actually start to notice you have better balance. Now, for an athlete, this can be extremely important when it comes to performance. And for an older adult, this is key for reducing falls and therefore risk of injury. Now, the last thing that ditching your shoes and going barefoot more often can provide you is the benefit within the gym. You see, going barefoot more often can enhance your foot stability, and better foot stability leads to better lifting technique as a whole. You see, when you cram your toes together within a narrow shoe, it's far easier to lose foot control and allow the knee to cave in as well. But if we're able to spread your toes out by going barefoot or wearing a shoe that mimics going barefoot, the foot can function as it was designed, maintain better stability, better arch control, and therefore less room for knee instability. Now, personally, I was really challenged with this years ago. I thought going barefoot within the gym was not a smart idea and potentially dangerous. It wasn't until I had a conversation with Chris Duffin. People were amazed by his 1,000-pound squat for 3 reps years ago. He performed this completely barefoot. He told me, Aaron, going barefoot is a performance enhancer. I can feel 100% connected to the ground and feel every small shift that's going to happen in a way that you can't with shoes on. From then on, I've really gone down the rabbit hole of barefoot training, understanding the research, what it has to say, and seeing it in my own lifting career. Today, I only squat barefoot, and it has been a game changer for my ability to control my own squat, and I urge you to try it as well. This is
This is Joshua. He's hungry. Today, he's not eaten any food. Literally nothing. He's not just hungry, he's starving. In all reality, Joshua will die of hunger-related disease, maybe not today, but not that too long in the future. In all reality, Joshua will die of hunger-related disease, maybe not today, but not that too long in the future. He'll join the other 11,000 children who die daily of hunger-related diseases. Now, Joshua is not in some barren desert like the Sahara where there is no food. Literally, a 5-minute walk up this hill, there's a small supermarket where you can buy as much food as you really want or would need. Joshua's issue is that he's an orphan. His guardian neighbour is trying to raise her own 3 children by herself and then also look after Joshua and his little sister. But she has no job. How do you put food in the belly of your own children, let alone your dead neighbour's children? She tries, but what's her chances? She's got no education, she's got no unemployment benefits, she's got no social security. It's not that she's fallen through the cracks of the system, there is no system. She literally has no way to put food into Joshua's belly. This is Joshua. He watched today as some lucky children went to school. He so wishes he could go to school, but it costs 50 cents to go to school here. And he hasn't got 50 cents. 50 cents. He's not alone. Most people in this slum, they live on $1 or $2 a day. How do you take the dollars that you earn and pay rent, buy some food, and still have 50 cents left over to pay for school fees? You just can't. He won't go to school ever. No education, no learning. He'll remain illiterate, not able to read or write. And Joshua will stay here and die in this slum. And along with maybe the other 60 million children in the next decade who live in the slums on our planet.
If you've bought any sneakers recently, they may not be the real deal.
Like Nike 3 and Nike 5.
Exactly the same.
Footwear accounts for about 20% of the value of all counterfeit goods, in a global market worth over $500 billion and rising.
These are not real. It's fine.
The quantity and quality of counterfeits has never been greater,
To me, these things are damn near one-to-one.
with many buyers purposefully choosing the steal
I think it's pretty close to a victimless crime.
over the real.
Let's be clear, organised crime is involved.
So why has the counterfeit market exploded? And should the big brands be worried? Making their way from wholesalers and middlemen to street markets. But today, buying fakes feels a lot like buying legal products. Sites like Reddit mean you can order bespoke parcels directly from counterfeiters with just a few clicks.
E-commerce completely revolutionized the business of counterfeiting. Shipments used to be made generally in large containers, 20-foot or 40-foot containers. We'd regularly seize 3,000-4,000 pieces. Since those days, shipments are sent out individually by DHL, by FedEx, by China Post.
Counterfeiters are utilizing e-commerce to further blur the line between the legal and illegal retail markets. When it comes to selling fake sneakers, some have abandoned the old tricks of the trade. Now, counterfeiters often seek customer satisfaction through transparency and honesty. Purpose to advertise their counterfeiting prowess.
Counterfeiters are incredibly tech savvy. Online sales are their entire business. It's their bread and butter, and they need to stay ahead of the curve on technology.
Now, how much would you be prepared to fork out for a pair of used shoes?
There's another 21st century trend, common in legal retail, which is driving the boom in counterfeit sneakers, the resale market. In America alone, it is worth an estimated $2 billion a year. At the top end, investors are trading in rare, authentic sneakers, which are sold on for profits.
Well, now you can walk a mile in Kanye West shoes. The first pair of Yeezys he ever wore are going up for auction.
This pair, designed and worn by Kanye West, set a new auction record by selling for $1.8 million.
People are investing in high-value sneakers. They want something that they can put on the shelf and maybe flip as the value goes up.
It's a bit like fine wine or an art collection. This is a new version of items that people have a great deal of value in.
Deliberately restrict supply on certain lines to build hype and demand. This demand for rare and authentic products has created a demand for high-quality fakes. Consumers are prepared to pay good money for good fakes.
Counterfeits that they're getting a lot of the good details of the shoe.
With the value of sneakers at an all-time high, the counterfeit producers are making sneakers kind of one-to-one quality.
The likes of eBay and StockX put authentication tags on sneakers, but now the counterfeiters are even copying those tags, some more credibly than others.
Look at the color. Look at the color. This was a little bit more lime green. This is just like a mint green.
Online influencers like this are found across the web. And just as influencers have become an important way for retailers to push legitimate products, so they have also become a significant force in driving consumers towards counterfeits.
To me, these things are damn near one-to-one. I mean, in my opinion, ones they have nailed.
Some of these influencers have millions of followers, and their videos have had millions of hits. They feed hungry consumers details about the varying quality and costs of counterfeits on offer.
Nice shoe, even the fake ones.
I can go online and buy a pair like this, close to the real thing.
I might get them now, you know? This is a little advertising for the real deal.
And we have some horribly fake ones like these.
Some argue these connoisseurs of counterfeit are performing a much-needed service for consumers. Replicas, or reps as they are known, are often simply more affordable for buyers.
Somebody shouldn't pay $1,000 for a shoe that's supposed to be from Nike and get it from somewhere else. I don't think that that's right. But if you're buying reps to wear them because you can't afford or you don't want to spend that kind of money, that doesn't bother me.
When it comes to consumers buying a replica that they know to be a replica, I think it's pretty close to a victimless crime, and the consumer is not harmed, sort of by definition, and arguably made better off because that person perhaps couldn't afford or could only afford at great lengths to buy the original.
Cavaras has witnessed this firsthand when filming undercover footage in factories.
It's kind of the urban landscape that you expect in China. You drive factory here, factory here, factory here, factory here.